We all remember that night on the 2nd of March at 11:50 p.m. when the first batch of the COVID-19 vaccine came to Kenya. It's been 4 weeks. Some have gotten the vaccine, some have not, and some are still undecided about it. The one thing that is common across all these groups is that they have questions. Questions like, what are the side effects? Will the vaccine completely protect me? What is the two-dose mechanism and how does it work? I spoke to Dr. Catherine Chobutungi, an epidemiologist, to answer this question.
Now, the efficacy of all the vaccines against you getting severe disease and getting hospitalized and dying is 100%. Every single vaccine, the efficacy against severe disease, hospitalization, and death is 100%. So, so the thing is, you can be vaccinated. Once you're fully vaccinated, you actually can get COVID, but you'll get the mild form. You won't get the COVID disease that requires you to be hospitalized. So the 76%, 79, 94 is against you getting infected. But against hospitalization and death is 100%. So that is the thing that people need to understand. And that's why right now it's like any vaccine you get it, because the protection against severe disease is 100%, at least for now. One thing I can say is that people are right to be concerned about, side effects, because you want to know whether your risk of getting COVID maybe is greater than the risk of getting a side effect, or the risk of getting a side effect is greater than the risk of getting COVID. I think that's the balance people should make. And when I say about getting COVID, what is your risk of getting the severe disease? That is what you should have in mind. So if you think that if you get COVID, you'll be fine, and you're sure about that, then if you get the vaccine, you get blood clots, okay, then you can make that balance. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, if you balance, what are the chances you might get COVID? Like right now in Kenya, with this test positivity rates of almost 20%, and the other day it was 26%. The chances of getting COVID are very high. What are the chances that you get hospitalized with COVID? Also it's a certain percentage. What are the chances you might get the severe form, especially if you have these underlying comorbidities? That's another. So you have to judge and say, okay, and what are the chances I'll get a blood clot? So as I've said, if the rate in some countries is like 1 in a million, okay, you might be that one unlucky Kenyan who might get the blood clot, or maybe not. You might be the 999,000 that don't get, The evidence right now shows that after 6 months, before 6 months, most people have reasonably high levels of the antibodies that would protect you against infection. But after 6 months, some people still stay with high antibodies, but most people, the antibodies start going down. By 8 months, some people have almost no antibodies left. So you don't know which category you're in, whether you're in the category that still has antibodies, or whether you're in the category where the antibodies have gone down, that they're almost non-existent and they cannot protect you against any future infection. So that's one thing. The second thing is the emergence of new variants, new strains. When you have antibodies, they are against the strain that you got infected with. So if you got COVID last year, that was like the original COVID strain. If you get COVID today, it might be a different strain. So if you're exposed to a different strain, then the antibodies that you have may not protect you. And so that is biologically, that is how viruses and viral infections work. That you're not protected against a different strain if the strain is significantly different from the one that infected you. So as long as the clinical trials continue, we'll keep knowing how high are your antibodies after 6 months, after 9 months, after 1 year, after 2 years. So if by the end of 1 year of follow-up, it is clear that the antibodies are not enough, then there may be a recommendation that people need to get a booster. So that's one dimension. That in the absence of new variants, it may still be possible that everybody will need to get a booster, but we are not at a point where the clinical trials have followed up people long enough to know whether they will be whether it will be necessary to get a booster. All these are things which are, somewhere down the line. For now, it gets 2 doses. The doses, they can protect you for up to 9 months, 8 months, but as more data comes available, then there may be a decision to change and say, okay, everybody needs a booster. There's a country like Israel where they vaccinated almost 60% of the population. So they have data on people getting vaccinated and people not getting vaccinated. They have data on what happens in people with HIV, and there are people who people who are pregnant. So they're able to now start doing analysis of subgroups of people. And so based on that, now the WHO has an expert committee that looks at new data as it comes, and then it sort of updates its guidance. And so far, the guidance says people who are HIV positive, the vaccine is safe. The vaccine is safe, the virus is not. So we go back to the question of risk and benefit. Yeah. So there's always that whole thing of a biological mechanism, because if you understand how HIV works in the body and you see how a vaccine works in the body, then you can figure out what are the likely interactions between the mechanism for HIV and interactions for the vaccine. And so based on that analysis, at least even UNAIDS actually put out a statement that the vaccine is safe for people who are HIV positive. So the exclusions, as I said, it's children. It was not tested in children, but clinical trials are going on. In the US, they are recruiting children, and in the UK, they've started recruiting children. So within maybe 6 months, there'll be new data that shows the safety from, I think, age 12. Most of them are stopping at age 12. The safety from age 12 up to age 16 or age 18, depending on the vaccine. And then once that is established, now they start recruiting maybe 2 years and above. So it is progressive. And the reason it was progressive is because COVID was not very severe in those age groups. So they prioritized safety and efficacy in the groups which are more likely to get COVID-19. But then, as I said, the clinical trials are continuing. So they are already enrolling. I think actually the studies in the US have already stopped enrolling. So now they are following up. Then after maybe 3 months, there will be data on safety and efficacy and also dosage in children. Yeah. So for now, as I've said, the exclusions are people with very severe allergic reactions, but to the extent that if you already have a history of severe allergic reactions, when you go for the vaccine, you should go with your antidote. And then you should be observed for longer. So if you have exactly, if you have severe reactions, not just any allergies, severe allergic reactions, people who have to be hospitalized because they got an allergic reaction. So for those ones, you should go with your antidote when you go for vaccination, and then you should be observed for longer. And then for pregnant women, it is up to you. They'll tell you, you can't take it, you may not take it. So you say, I want to take it when you have decided on your own that you want to take it. And any risks that may come out, you've decided to take the risk because the vaccine was not tested in pregnant women. But some women have taken it. And actually, there's a study which showed that one of the first women to be vaccinated, she's had a baby, and the baby was born with antibodies. So that's an interesting one. And the other interesting thing about the AstraZeneca vaccine is that the clinical trials were looking at a dosing interval of 3 weeks. So you get dose 1 today, and then after 3 weeks, you get dose 2. Then, when the vaccine rollout started in the UK, there was already studies which showed that people who had delayed to get the second dose actually had a better immune response than those who got vaccinated after 3 weeks. So the UK said, okay, if we have 10 million doses, should we vaccinate 5 million people and then fully vaccinate them? Or should we vaccinate everyone with at least 1 dose? Because the first dose is protective. The second dose is you get the maximum benefit of the vaccine, but the first dose is not useless. It gives you some level of protection. So the UK decided that we are going to vaccinate everybody, at least maximize every single person getting a single dose. Mm-hmm. And then they were able to establish that if you get the second dose after 12 weeks, 12 weeks, almost 3 months, the immune response is even better, much, much better than if you get it after 3 weeks. So they took a risk and the risk paid off. And now, actually, Uganda is using a 12-week interval. So when you get your first dose, people are getting scheduled for May for them to get the second dose. So Kenya is using the 3-week interval. But if you wait until May and get your second dose, it may actually even be better for you. But it's just that the protection you have between now and May is not as good as the protection you'd get if you had your second dose. But if you survive and between now and May, then you'll get a better protection. If it's AstraZeneca, the ingredients are the same. The only different one is the Sputnik, which is in the news right now. Yes. Sputnik, the first dose and the second dose are different. So the technology used in the AstraZeneca and Sputnik is actually similar. But what Sputnik did, so the technology is getting a virus which is not known to cause disease in humans. It affects other animals, but it doesn't cause disease in humans. It's called the adenovirus. So they get this virus and they remove the genetic material of that virus and they put the genetic material of COVID. So when they inject you with that vaccine, which has a virus whose genetic material has been changed, they've put the genetic code of COVID, you form antibodies against the genetic material of COVID. So now so AstraZeneca, that's the technology they used, but it's dose 1 and dose 2 are the same. Now what Sputnik did, they took 2 different viruses. They are still adenoviruses, but different types. So dose 1 is one type of virus and dose 2 is a second type of virus. The anti-vaxxers are very committed, they're very dedicated, they keep on posting stuff. And for us, either we react or we don't post the stuff that we know as committed as they are. So it's going to be a long, difficult time until we are going to convince one person at a time. Yes. But of course, I think the world is waking up to this. So, the governments, WHO, all these are trying to find ways in which to penetrate lots of civil society. So I think with concerted efforts, we start making inroads into some of these conversations.